project. This project is going to be a remix of the Kendrick Lamar song, Poetic Justice. And the focus of this whole project is all on MIDI. MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. And when we're dealing with MIDI, we are dealing with what is essentially data, okay? And the beautiful thing about working with MIDI, as you guys will see throughout this project, is that it's really malleable and pliable, and we can change it and we can really customize it, okay? So it's different than working with audio. So you guys will see that you have one track. This is a vocal track. It is not perfect, okay? When you guys listen to it,
my patience with all these seductive photographs, and
you can hear the drums in the background, okay? It's not a perfect, clean a cappella. It's something that somebody ripped off the internet. Now, we are going to basically cover up those drum sounds with our own drum sounds, so don't worry too much about that. You'll also notice that I have these guys up here that are called markers, okay? These are marking the different drum sections that we're going to have. And if you're wondering how to add these markers, it's easy. You click somewhere, and then you click set up here, and you can add a marker. These markers can be changed around, moved around. You can add something to them by you can rename them, by doing Command R or Control R and calling them something. You can get rid of them by clicking here on the marker itself, pressing delete. You can also go to create, add locator, and that will add one of those, okay? So many ways to add and delete those guys, but you're gonna leave mine where they are for now. So the first thing we're gonna do is dive into a MIDI instrument called drum rack. This is a really fun way to add drums. It's really customizable. It's different than the way that we added kicks in our last project, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is make a new MIDI track. Now, to make a new audio track, it's Command or Control T. To make a new MIDI track, it's Command or Control Shift T, okay? You can also do Create, Insert MIDI track. Either way will get you a new MIDI track. Then we are going to go over here to where it says Instruments, and these are our MIDI instruments that are loaded on with Ableton. We are going to grab the instrument called Drum Rack, and we are going to drag and drop it onto our MIDI track, okay? Let me do that one more time. I'm gonna do Command Z or Control Z, which is undo. I'm gonna grab this drum rack. I'm not gonna double click on it, although I actually could. I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna drop it on here. I'm gonna do Command Z or Control Z one more time. This time I'm just gonna double click on it. Bloop, okay? And now this has become a drum rack. Now, if you double click here, okay, your drum rack is going to show up. I like to compare a drum rack to the trunk of a car, and within the drum rack, you put the drums that you are going to need, okay? So we're gonna go to samples right here, and we're gonna load up the trunk of our car with the drums that we're gonna need for this gig. And on this gig, all we do is play Kendrick Lamar's Poetic Justice, okay? So we're gonna load up our drum rack through using these samples. So I'm gonna go up here to search, and I'm going to look for a kick drum. I type in kick, and you'll notice all of these are gonna show up. I'm auditioning them by scrolling through them, okay? And I'm going to choose any kick that I want. I'm gonna go with this 808 thud, okay? I'm not going to double click on it. I'm going to grab it, drag it, and drop it into my drum rack. And now you guys can see that I'm triggering it here. I'm gonna undo Command Z or Control Z so you can see what happens. Let's say I decide I want this thud and I double click on it. Whoa, my drum rack is gone. You guys can see it doesn't say drum rack anymore, it just says kick. This is going to happen to all of you guys, at least once, probably many times. If this happens, Command Z or Control Z. At some point, somebody's gonna be like, my drum rack is missing. That happens to everybody, okay? So, Command Z or Control Z, get back to where you have just a drum rack, okay? And then drag it on. Okay, I have my kick. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a snare, because that's another instrument I want to have in my car trunk for my gig and in my drum rack. I'm going to clear this kick out and I'm going to search snare. And I'm going to scroll through these. I'm going to go with this snare 808. I'm going to double click. Oh no, I'm not going to double click. That doesn't work. Command Z or Control Z. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to drag it in. I'm going to drop it anywhere on any of these drum pads. Okay? And now I can use these play heads to hear my drums. I'm going to look for one more thing, which is a closed hi-hat. So I am going to search closed hat. I like this guy. I'm going to drag and drop it in anywhere. By the way, if you guys are not able to hear these as you are scrolling through them, make sure that this little button is turned on, okay? That will allow us to audition them. That little headphone button needs to be turned blue. All right, so I'm looking in my drum rack or in my car trunk, and I brought 3 drums to my gig. I brought a kick, I brought a snare, I brought a closed hi-hat, okay? Now, what am I going to do with these 3 drums? I'm going to build drums. I'm going to write a drum beat, okay? In order to do that, I need to create what's called a MIDI clip, okay? I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to select all the way from the beginning until the entire end, and I'm going to, on a Mac, I'm going to do Command Shift M for MIDI, and on a PC, I'm going to do Control Shift M. And what you guys will notice is it makes a MIDI clip, and now we can program our drums. Now, I want you guys to practice doing something a bunch of times. I click here where it says drum rack to be able to see what drums are in my drum rack, what's in my trunk. I click here with the hand, double click here to be able to program my drums. Again, click here to be able to see what's in my drum rack, and click here to be able to program my drums. Okay? And I am ready to program my drums.